What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plaisance Podcast, filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes, so cold that they're boiling hot. In this episode, we will be previewing the Florida State Seminoles. Guys, be sure to hit the like button, the comment button, the subscribe button. I love doing these videos for y'all, and I love when y'all interact with them, so be sure to slam all those buttons. Let's go ahead and hop right into the stars of this team. At quarterback, he comes in first year here, but transferring from Clemson and Oregon State, DJ Uiagalelei. I believe that is how you pronounce his name. I could be wrong. If I am, I apologize. But regardless, I think he is a sleeper for best quarterback in the ACC. I know he's got a ton of haters. I am a big fan of his. He did really well at Oregon State last year. That is the quarterback that is going to lead this team and a star to look out for all the same. Darius Washington, one of the better tackles in football and one of the best tackles in the ACC. He's going to be the pass protector on the left side of the football for this Florida State team. And I am a firm believer that he is going to do the best job on this team of setting up a good pocket for the pass game. So those are the two stars to look out for on offense. On the defensive side of the ball, there's some really, really good talent. Patrick Payton to start. This guy is a speed rush. He is going to take on a much bigger role this season. Defensive end, edge setter. He had 7 sacks last year. I think that he's going to have a breakout season, have 10 plus sacks. That's my bold prediction. And then in the secondary, Shaheem Brown. He is a run stopper, one of the most dynamic safeties in football right now. 53 tackles last year. When it comes to stopping the run, he's your guy when you look at the backfield or the backside of the defense, I guess. And then in the pass game, I think he's capable. I mean, I don't think that he's that bad in coverage, but in terms of being a dynamic player, rushing the quarterback, just doing whatever a safety has to do to win the defensive side of the football, Shaheem Brown, he is the guy on the defensive side of the ball to do that. Now, let's go ahead and talk about a couple of storylines, the losses and additions for this program, and then last but not least, our lovely record prediction. First storyline that I want to talk about, have you guys ever heard of a Super Bowl hangover? To me, that is exactly what is happening to this Florida State team. Now, of course, they're not playing in the Super Bowl. They did not play in the Super Bowl, but they did get snubbed. A massive snub out of the college football playoff. Now, obviously, there is debates around this. Still to this day, Florida State fans are pissed about this. They went 13-0, won their conference, and still did not get into the college football playoff. I think that they probably should have. I am an Alabama fan, and I'm glad that they got in. I think that they would have beaten Florida State in a head-to-head matchup at the end of the season. The problem with this Florida State team is they were riddled with injuries, specifically at the quarterback position. They lost their leader in Jordan Travis, and they did not look the same in the last 2 or 3 games of the year. All that being said, that snub led to an absolute thrashing in the bowl game versus Georgia. I think they won 65-3 or something like that. It was god-awful to watch. The Florida State team had all of their good players declare for the draft. They did not participate. Jordan Travis obviously did not participate. I think that is a tone setter, though, leading into this season, and they're going to have to really change my mind if I want to believe differently. Now, the star players from this last year's Florida State team are gone, specifically their leader, Jordan Travis, and it's up to Mike Norvell, the head coach, to weather the storm and persevere. I think that he can do it. He's gotten a ton of help in the recruiting class and the transfer portal, so it's definitely possible for this Florida State team to recover. Now, speaking of recovering, let's talk about what they're recovering from. The losses from this Florida State team to start. Jared Verse, defensive end, sack leader, gets drafted to the Los Angeles Rams. The Keon Coleman, number 1 wide receiver, leading in receptions and receiving yards. He gets drafted in the 2nd round to the Buffalo Bills. Then to pair up with Jared Verse in Los Angeles, Brandon Fisk gets drafted. He had 6 sacks last year and was the face of the interior defensive line. He had a really good combine, by the way, just pointing that out. Renardo Green and Jarrian Jones. They both get drafted. Those were the best two corners on this Florida State defense. Trey Benson leading in rushing yards last season. He also gets drafted. And then last but not least, Jordan Travis also goes to the NFL. Your passing leader, your leader overall on the team. This Florida State team has got to answer some major questions. Now, they do so in the transfer portal. For starters, they got DJ Uiagalelei. There you go. He comes in from Oregon State, previously at Clemson. I'm going to really enjoy seeing that Florida State-Clemson matchup this year. But he comes in, take over the quarterback position. I definitely think he's a capable passer, and I think he's a pretty good vocal leader. Now, the rest of this Florida State transfer portal, they hit it hard. They got several four-star transfers from LSU, Georgia, West Virginia, Alabama. The one that I want to talk about of note is Roydell Williams, who's going to take over Trey Benson's position. This guy is going to tote the rock this season. I think he's going to have more rushing yards than Trey Benson had last year. I think he had about 800. I expect Roydell Williams to be a 1,000-yard back. Extremely talented from Alabama. Those are the additions for this Florida State team. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we get into the record prediction, this is a prove-it year for the Florida State Seminoles. I am a firm believer that they can do it, but there's no guarantee that they will do it. They have been teetering on the line of success since they won the national championship in 2014 with Jameis Winston and Jimbo Fisher. All that being said, they've got to do it again this season if they want to sneak back into relevancy. I think they can. Let's go ahead and hop into our record prediction. Florida State starts out the season versus Georgia Tech versus Boston College, hopping right into ACC play, which I think is interesting. Both of those are wins. Georgia Tech will be at a neutral site, but I think those are both wins. At home versus Memphis, at home versus Cal. Memphis is a contender as a group of 5 playoff team, but I do not think they stack up talent-wise with Florida State, and it's at home. That is a awesome place to play. Hard to go in on the road and win. I think they get the win there. Cal, that might be a sneakily competitive game, but I will give Florida State the benefit of the doubt here. I think their quarterback talent is a little bit better, and they're at home. 4th win of the season at SMU. Sneaky upset game, but I will give Florida State the benefit of the doubt. They still have tons of talent on defense. They're going to have to get to the quarterback, because if they do not get to Preston Stone on SMU will make this game an absolute shootout. But I will give Florida State the win. Home versus Clemson. 3rd toughest game of the season. It's at home. Cade Klubnik comes to battle DJU, the old quarterback for Clemson. One of my favorite games to watch this upcoming college football year. I think Florida State will win a nail-biter like they did last year. They get the win versus Clemson. At Duke, they lost their starting quarterback in Riley Leonard. They lost their head coach in Mike Elko. They do get Malik Murphy from Texas, but I still think they're in a rebuild mode with Manny Diaz coming in to be a first-year head coach. Even though it's on the road, I'll give Florida State the win. But here comes the first loss. At Miami, I am a big believer in Cam Ward and this Miami team. I don't know how much I believe in the Florida State Seminoles, especially on the road, down there in the new version of whatever the Orange Bowl is. I think they play in Hard Rock. Regardless, the Miami Hurricanes will win this game. Next up, hosting North Carolina. They're going to be reeling without Drake May. I don't know how good this North Carolina team will be. Mac Brown is still the head coach, and quite frankly, I don't know how much longer he's going to be a head coach. Not saying he'll get fired, but he's, I think, a little bit older than Nick Saban is. So it's hard to do that over and over and over again, especially when you have talent rotating at such a high clip. So I think that will be a win for Florida State because it's at home. At Notre Dame, this game's going to get ugly in my opinion. Notre Dame is one of the best college football programs right now in the country. They can consistently get talent, especially on the defensive side of the football. Florida State is going to travel all the way up to South Bend and get a loss handed to them. They will close out the season versus Charleston Southern and Florida at home. I will give those both wins, but Florida has a top 25 roster and could be dangerous. I will say that win goes to Florida State. They have home field advantage, but Graham Mertz could come in and torch this Florida State defense, but 10-2 overall, I believe that might put them in contention for an ACC championship game. It's going to depend on other teams like Miami, Clemson, Louisville, NC State, but regardless, 10-2, that's not that bad of a year. I don't know if that's going to get you into the college football playoff. You have to win the ACC championship game, in my opinion. So that's going to do it for my Florida State preview. Hit that like button, comment button, subscribe button. I appreciate every single one of you viewing these videos. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.